So, and Charles has given me a timer here to keep me on track after we worked together earlier in the year in Dubai, so I can get that started and hope there isn't an alarm at the end of it. But let me start by saying a welcome to my panelists. So on the stage here with me, I have four gurus, experts from the industry, and I think what's going to be fascinating about today's session is they all come with different perspectives around brands, and but all from our industry, so that should help us get some different insights. So over on my left there we have Aino, Collan-Jyränoja.
Jyränoja, yeah, you're doing great job.
I didn't discourage
My name
you.
is horrible to pronounce, other than Finns.
Thanks, Aino. And Aino's from NORDIC Hotels and Resorts, part of Strawberry Group. And then we have Hara, Poucha here from RADISSON Hotel Group. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Joining us. And Hara is Senior Director of Brand Strategy and Guest Experience for RADISSON in the region. And then over on my right, and you've made it hard for me by sitting together, I've got Diana, and so I have Diana here from Sheraton Hotel in Stockholm. Welcome.
No, thank you.
Diana Zambrano.
Yes.
Get my names right, and great to have you with us this morning. And then over on my right there, we have Diane Wennerland from BWH Hotels Best Western.
Thank you.
Good to have you joining. So, what a panel. And some of the things that I was thinking about when we were starting talking about today, we're obviously just before Christmas. We've come to Northern Europe, and the hotel here feels very festive, and there's definitely a seasonal feel in the air about it. But seasonality is an important theme in our industry generally, so we'll have seasonal festive events like we're just coming into now. But right now as well, we've also got other seasonal, important seasonal times of year and events happening in different parts of the world. So there'll be hot destinations like in Florida where people are escaping the cold weather to get to some sunshine, and so on and so forth. And so seasonality is one of those really important themes that our industry has had to get used to dealing with in order to achieve commercial performance, but also meet guests' expectations at those different times of year. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about with the panel here is understanding people's context before they arrive, because we can look at guests generically, but actually people have very different intentions before they arrive in our hotels. So maybe why don't I start with you, Diana, just here on the right. So when you're thinking about guests arriving on property, what sort of things what gives you clues as to what they're trying to do?
Of course, and I think that's one of the beauties about working in hotels is that you get to experience and meet guests that are here for different walks of life. It can be business, it can be with their families, it can be to attend an event. And especially during the holiday seasons, we can see that there is a switch or a change in the type of guests that we have, especially if we think about city hotels. And one of the best ways, I think, to be able to understand why the guests are visiting us, it's a lot of the pre-arrival contact. And nowadays, we're very lucky that there are a lot of systems that help make this contact a lot easier. For large hotels, for example, I work at the Sheraton Stockholm, where we have 463 rooms. We can have almost 1,000 guests staying with us during high occupancy. So through these systems, we're able to understand why are they staying with us. We can do targeted upsells. That also gives us a clue why are they visiting. But at the same time, we're able to create a service and a product that they're looking for. And so really that pre-arrival contact, it can also be especially for elite members or for regular guests, where we have more of that face-to-face contact with them or through the phone or through the email, that we're able to understand their purpose of staying with us. And it helps us a lot with the guest experience to really curate and tailor the experience for that individual guest.
Very good. So the pre-arrival contact. Now, Hara, on your side, so working for a big group like RADISSON, loyalty program, presumably a big part of your thinking. Are you capturing data? Are you preparing? How do you understand what people are wanting before they get even into their stay?
Loyalty is the most important, let's say, factor that we try to understand, try to analyze. The DNA of our loyalty members are very important, and as Diane was saying, it's important to make sure that we do our homework on a pre-arrival stage, because there are a lot of locations, there are a lot of guests, a lot of brands, so you really need to translate this guest experience based not only on what the guest wants, but what the guest expects from a different brand. We have 10 brands in our portfolio. Marriott has even more, so you really need to customize the journey based on the expectations that the guests have from the individual brands, because at the end of the day, they get a different experience from this individual brand development. So for us, loyalty is like, let's say, the umbrella under which we try to analyze what the guests are expecting. And seasonality is, of course, very important. However, I think that seasonality is also, as you said, it's a driver for commercial performance. Let's be honest, it's what we are going after. But then at the guest experience level, seasonality is a reason to create new memories for them. And this is something that, especially at the hotel level, we shouldn't be forgetting.
Yeah, that's great. And I know you're in the luxury part of Strawberry, so in Nordic Hotels and Resorts. How do you think about that in terms of, are there differences for your sort of luxury guests in the pre-arrival work that you're doing compared to, say, in the other brands?
Well, actually, just talking about my role, I'm responsible on rolling out a new engagement platform for the Nordic Hotels and Resorts Luxury and Lifestyle division. So we probably all know that we have so many systems within the hotel industry, and it's actually hard to get the branding and the messages coherent according to the brand within the one system. So that's what we're actually trying to achieve. But yeah, we are using CRM data for different guests, for example, in the pre-arrival letters. Based on, for example, what the guests have booked, we are suggesting we can actually approach them with a specific email offering them table reservation for a Christmas dinner, for example, if they haven't booked that yet, or we are able to enhance their stay with offering a special room upgrade. For example, we have beautiful Christmas-themed suites available during the festive season within our luxury portfolio hotels.
Very
that
good.
Is something we
so
do.
Tailoring the experience, really making it individual. That's great. So I'm going to talk to you and turn to you, Diane, for our second theme. And I'm interested, so the theme here is around designing the on-property experience. And I know you work at the brand level, Diane, across BWH, so Best Western Hotels. But are there, how do you apply standards that across, so give you your brand consistency, but at the same time allow you to prepare for people's needs and at seasonal times?
Yeah, so it is actually very interesting because, you know, in my role, I work very much also with the properties on property, you know, trying to implement and see what is actually a standard that can be a good, you know, you might want to call it sort of brilliant basic that you want to apply, because it is a little bit, standard sounds always a little bit boring, but it is in fact an element that gives us a good basis from which to then create a more individualized approach, but at the same time meeting a guest expectation. And like you said, it's a very different expectation depending on which brand you're in, but even what is the reason for your travel. That's why it's so important to understand where is that guest and why is he coming to me, because the expectation can be very different depending on the purpose of my travel. I can have very high expectations if I pay a lot of money for a room, but also if I'm maybe there on business. But if I'm just hanging out with my daughter or something like that, then I might be very relaxed about things, and you know, I don't really mind so much if certain standards are maybe not there that I was expecting before. But I was thinking also about the, when we have systems that allow us to create a base and do pre-arrival, I think we also always need to remember that we can do a lot of that recognizing on property. I think it's very important to have that personal touch at check-in, for example, to really say, what brings you here? Just that question that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, and I'm a huge advocate of digital and automation and all of those things, but at the end of the day, I think the most memorable experiences and the most personal experiences are delivered by a person, and it's a person to a person. So Diana, when you listen to Diane's experience there, she's representing a brand, and you sit underneath a brand. You're in Sheraton and then Marriott eventually. But how much, when you're designing the in-property experience, how much does that direction come from the brand versus you deciding at the property level?
I would say from the brand, of course, we have our brand standards. So, for example, when you are walking to a specific brand, you do want the guest to feel that, yes, this is a Sheraton, this is a Ritz-Carlton, this is a Element Hotel. Because again, that is what they're booking, that's what they are expecting. So from I would say the umbrella version, we do have a lot of things that we have to respect when it comes to physical aspects of the hotel, service standards of the hotel. But at the same time, things I think are changing where brands do have a little bit more freedom and to be able to create their own experience. And I think especially with hotels, for example, you want guests that are traveling, they also want to have a genuine experience. So that even though you are staying, for example, in a Sheraton, you want that the experience at the Sheraton Stockholm is something special, that only when traveling to Stockholm can they receive this type of service or this type of product. And what you said, Diane, about the interaction face-to-face, I think that's really where you can make the difference. That you can create these personal moments for the guests where they actually feel like, wow, the service that was delivered, that made my stay, and that's really what creates a memorable experience. So this was a Sheraton, but or this was the big brand, but what was delivered in that individual hotel, that really made the difference, and that really boosts up loyalty as well. That it helps encourage people to stay loyal to the brand and to the overall company.
Yeah.
If I can just add something to this, because this is really where it makes the magic, because we can have as many pre-arrival messages and AI-supported tools as we want. If nobody reads what is in there and applies that later on, then it all was for, I want to say nothing, but it doesn't create what we wanted to create. I think often that's what we see. It falls down at the last step, So, and this is what we need to work.
If I can add to that, because I think that is the one thing that we really need to keep in mind when we're talking about hotel level. Maybe at a global, let's say, offices, headquarters, you have this system and the other system. We have reviews, guest reviews, which are very important to listen to, combined with a CRM, with a loyalty DNA. But it's also important to be able to distribute this information to the hotel level team members, that they are overwhelmed of delivering this service in a way that they are able to read it easily so they can engage with the guest. And I agree, standards are there. For me, standards are very important. I mean, when I am looking forward to receive the audits of our hotels, but at the end of the day, and I had one experience today here with Mirja, what will stay in your mind is that small wow moment that you will get at the hotel level. As I had today, I'm a big fan of espresso. No espresso machines, I assume, in Sweden. It's all about the coffee that they get. Yet they brought espresso for me from the 12th floor just to make sure that I get the coffee that I like. So far, what I know I will remember from this hotel is that they did the extra step to facilitate my need. And that is very important. That is not in CRM, that is not in loyalty. It's just the human interaction that you get at the hotel level.
Yeah, so that personal touch, again, so key. Yes. And also, I think what you're describing there is autonomy for team members. So within within standards, but also...
I think the standards are there to make... we're all hoteliers, so you will understand that it's not straightforward, but standards are there to make space, room for the team members at the hotel level to do these extra steps. You set the basics, so then you can go and do the extra steps that will bring this memory to the guest, that they will want to repeat this journey with you in another location, in another brand, etc.
I like that. I know. Tell us a bit. So you have a, you know, so a regional brand, and you know, much more sort of, arguably much more sort of character from that represents the region. Then, but even so, then how much are you driving that at the brand level for the in-stay experience versus letting the hotels determine the experience for guests?
Well, as we're talking about high-end luxury brands, and they're all independent, we have over 40 independent luxury hotels within the Nordics. Most of them are located in the cities, big cities, capitals. So obviously, our strategy is to give them as possible freedom as possible. So definitely creating original experiences, unique type of packaging, that is the key element to differentiate. And just to give an example, as I'm coming from Helsinki, the location set or limits it a bit, for example, in Helsinki, because we have 9 of our properties within the same block. So definitely brand and the uniqueness plays a key role of making these seasonal elements in place in a unique way, because in the end we're always all fighting from the same customers that comes in. So you really need to make unique experiences alive according to the brand.
Yeah, very good. Well, that's a good segue actually into our next topic, which was to talk a little bit around the commercial side of things. So how do we measure, you know, when we look at these seasonal events and look at different times of year, you know, you could say, well, actually, this is one of the toughest times of year to make money, or it could also be, you know, a real opportunity for the business to earn extra revenue. So when you think about that, and maybe if I start with Diane, perhaps on the end, in terms of thinking about at the brand level, driving revenue through seasonal events, but also how do you measure it, and how do you you know, gauge the effectiveness of some of the work you've done around promoting those things?
Well, again, I mean, you have obviously the I'd say obvious, you know, seasonal campaigning that, you know, most of the brands do, and, you know, we all do this with, you know, more or less result and effect. I think the loyalty space is probably one of the biggest areas where we try and push that seasonal campaigning. But I think, again, when it comes to, you know, what kind of revenue you realize at the end of it, we have noticed that, you know, a lot of the, you know, the motivation to travel and what it is that makes you actually then spend the money is not just, you know, having a good price for an accommodation. It's really what happens, why am I going somewhere? So it's really they're trying to build on the local events, on anything that will make the person go there. So we have, for example, we have a hotel in one of our member hotels on the island of Gotland, Strand Hotel. They have also designed like a Christmas suite. It started with a plain Christmas, a smaller Christmas room, and it became a much bigger thing. And initially, it wasn't such a revenue hitter. It was, you know, it didn't generate so many bookings in the first year, but it generated a lot of attention. And then the second year, subsequent years, the bookings started rolling in. And, you know, when I asked them, I said, so why? What is the motivation of people to actually book that room? And they say, well, a lot of people have this vision of Gotland being this beautiful medieval place, and it snows, and, you know, they have this outlook over the medieval town. And in reality, it's nothing like that. It's usually foggy and rainy and quite horrible. So they create that little bit of magic in that room, and you can still look out over the medieval town, and you kind of feel it's that beautiful anyway. So, and this is kind of the way they created something, and this is also then how they get people to spend money. There's some local event which they tie it into and market it that way. And we've also seen a lot of, I mean, I'm working internationally across Europe, so in France, for example, maybe not that surprising, but there's a lot of focus on F&B. This is where you reel in the money. There's champagne breakfast stuff and all kinds of initiatives around the festive season that involves eating and drinking. And if you can, and that's also how you can engage your local community, because if you get your local people to come to you, that will give the guests that come from abroad the feeling that they are somewhere local, and that will make them feel more at home. So a lot of that is in the finer detail, I think, in the revenue for the hotel.
Well, I think this raises a really interesting point in terms of the characteristic of the industry. A lot of franchise agreements or even management agreements don't include now F&B, or some do or don't, and so that means that the brands may or may not be motivated to commercially anyway, to drive money through F&B outlets or other associated outlets. But it must be very different though when you're thinking about it, Diana, from a property point of view, because this is a busy time and people must use the hotel for all sorts of things, not necessarily staying guests. Tell us a bit about that.
Of course, and I think we can see a bit of a change during the holiday seasons, that we have either pre-holiday season, we have a lot of events that are happening, we have a lot of launches, as well after the holiday seasons, where January, which is great for hotels, which usually is our toughest period, January, we do see a bit of a change where we have more people actually booking. So again, it's not just always for the F&B part, which is amazing to drive people in and locals, but it's also about what's happening in the conference side. As well, when it comes to corporate contracts, we do see that people are traveling a bit more in December, in January, because of the different launches as well, as what's actually kind of motivating, and there's a bit of a change in the booking patterns. So it means it's great for hotel side, because it does really mean that we're busy for a longer period of time. And more guests as well. It's always exciting to take care of.
Yeah, very true. And over on this side, I know I was going to ask you about, are you looking at lifetime value of customers? So, for example, when they, not just how much they spend on booking the room, but actually let's look at their data and see, well, how much do they typically spend, and what might that mean in the future?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, there was a question about how do we measure the efforts of making all seasonal improvements at the hotels. So I would say that still the biggest way of measuring that is to check the guest reviews. We are monitoring that within the hotels, and I guess we know that the guests usually tell if something is not working, but also they're also sharing the greatest moments of their stay. So I would use that as an indicator, like to start with, and also when talking about loyalty, we can see also this mega trend booming within our city hotels, for example, that actually the guests, they are really coming with their families to spend time at the hotels to celebrating the Christmas Eve rather than spending that home. And another group of people that I would like to mention is like making new traditions within the groups of friends. That is something new, that they actually come every year to spend Christmas Eve within the hotel. So that also makes it successful, that we can see that they're actually coming back and really cherish those efforts for the hotel.
Yeah, the importance of those reviews is so critical, isn't it? So I'm going to come to you, Hara, on our next and final topic. I'm keeping an eye on time, but just thinking about the different parts of the organisation that are working around guest experience, and also, particularly in delivering a seasonal experience. So I know you're working obviously at the brand level, but we have many times functions in the hotels which are guest experience focused, but less so at brands. It's typically you'd have revenue, you'd have sales, you'd have distribution, those sorts of things. But tell us a bit about your organisation and how you think about guest experience across different functions.
Well, for me, guest experience is guest experience. There is one design, one flow for guest experience. So that is the thing that every department and every hotel should look into. What is the guest experience journey? as we call it in a very corporate language, at least in RADISSON, the guest experience matrix. And that goes for every brand, right? So a guest experience matrix for Radisson Blu, collection, parking, etc. Then every department has its own contribution to this guest experience journey. And this is the important thing. If the web team needs to create something, that needs to contribute to the final guest experience journey. If CRM needs to develop something, and this is our alarm indeed, then that needs to contribute to this guest experience journey. So for me, it's not a struggle, although organizational can be, but it's more to orchestrate the entire delivery of this journey from online to physical presence at the end of the day at the hotel level. So yeah, this is where we need to come all together and deliver that journey for the guest.
Yeah, I mean, I like this idea of the way you're looking at it quite scientifically across as a guest experience matrix, and the fact that everybody's mobilized and focused around that is so important, because that's at the end of the day why people come back. And
it's not only for the guests, and I'm sorry if we're running out of time, but it's also from a revenue point of view. If you don't have that in mind, then how are you going to increase your ADR? If you don't have that in mind, how I can put this extra element in, I don't know, branded amenities, let's say, that you can justify your increase on your ADR. If you don't have that in mind, how you can add upselling products in your pre-arrival. So it's all coming together in a difficult way, but it's all coming together.
Very good. Well, I know we're pretty much at time, but let's just finish up with a quick fire if we can. So just thinking about, and maybe we'll just come along the line here, so putting the pressure on you, Diane, to think first, but what's a seasonal change that you tried maybe once that you'll carry on doing, or I'll give you a get out as well, maybe, or one that you tried and you say, we're never doing that again?
Well, like I said, as I work for a corporate institution or corporate department, maybe I'll come up with something that I have tried and that I think was a very good idea, which I would encourage a lot to do more of. This is very specifically Nordic or specifically Swedish. There's a big tradition around having big buffets of Christmas food, julbord. Everybody in this room who's Swedish will know that, and it is always a huge season running up to Christmas, and it's very elaborate and a lot. And I am a great advocate of making this a more intimate, served at the table. Some hotels have done that, or restaurants are doing that. And I think when it started coming up a few years back, that was something that I really liked as a seasonal tradition. And I think it should be done more, where you don't run on a buffet, where you have different sets of courses served at the table. That was great.
Very good. Diana?
Let me see, that's a difficult one. I would say from Sweden, one of the traditions that we implemented is the Lucia train. So it's one thing that we were a little bit nervous about setting up, because of course it's something very Swedish. It happens very early in the morning, that we have a choir singing, there's candles. So it was one thing that we were discussing, should we actually do this for the guests? Is it something that's going to be, especially when it's in the middle of the week on a Wednesday, are our business guests really going to be appreciating these people singing early in the morning, it's 7 in the morning? How is this going to be actually be received by the guests? So we went over, and it's like, you know what, let's get it done. It's one day, what's the worst that can happen? Maybe a couple angry reviews. But the reaction that we had from that, it was so positive. And I would say it wasn't just from the guest perspective, but from the team. Okay. As Maya said at the end, we are working during the holiday season. A lot of people are far away from home. Some people, it's the first time, that's their first winter in Sweden. And to be able to have that very Swedish experience, I think it was a wonderful moment both for guests and for employees. So yeah, we're continuing doing it.
Love it. Great one. Thank you. Hara?
I don't have a specific example in my mind, but I have a generic one that I think that I would like us for sure, and I think it's a trend in hospitality lately. It's the localization of the experience that I would like us to keep and explore and evolve, because Christmas in the Nordics is very different. I'm from Greece, completely different than, as you can imagine, in Greece. So for me, having an experience like you have it in the Nordics in Greece, I will be like, no, this is completely off. So just make sure that we evolve the localization of this seasonality, this experience, because at the end of the day, the guests are traveling for the location, for the destination, and we are the added value into this experience. So this is something that I would like us to explore more.
Very good. Thanks, Hara. And I know.
Thanks for saving me to the last. I have to say that I'm focusing on the add-ons, because this is a very, very tough question, but I think we could learn a lot about, as you mentioned, we are doing so much effort for the festive season, and applying that seasonal thinking on the rest of, in the Nordics we have 4 seasons, so maybe we could learn something that we could create for additional sales and additional products, appealing ones for the specific guest segments. That's something to keep in mind, that we could definitely learn from that.
Very good.
So instead of just having a festive winter additional sales, then we could think on products that could work in other seasons too. Very good. Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that. Please join me in thanking my panelists, Aino, Hara, Diana and Diane. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.